The world around me is vast, untamed, and ancient. I walk through endless forests where shadows stretch like predators, and the air tastes of survival. Every rustle in the undergrowth could mean life or death. Here, the land is ruled not by humans, but by beasts towering in size and ferocity. A mammoth's trumpet echoes in the distance, shaking the earth beneath my feet. Farther off, I sense eyes watching, sharp, hungry, unblinking. This is not a world built for comfort. It is a world of hunters and the hunted. My ancestors did not conquer it with strength alone. They endured it with cunning, patience, and unity. To survive here meant facing giants, creatures larger, faster, deadlier than anything we know today. And yet, they survived. This is their story, the struggle of Native Americans against prehistoric beasts. The ground shakes before I see them. A deep, rhythmic thunder rolls beneath my feet, and the trees tremble as if the earth itself were alive. Then, through the morning mist, they emerge. Giants draped in shaggy hair, tusks curling like ivory crescents, reaching for the sky. The mammoths. To stand in their presence is to feel both awe and fear. They are mountains that move, slow but unstoppable, each step pressing their weight into the soil of this ancient land. Their breath fogs the air in heavy clouds, and their calls echo like war horns through the valleys. For my people, the mammoth is both life and danger. Its meat can feed a village for weeks. Its hide, thick and warm, becomes shelter against bitter winds. Its bones are carved into tools, its sinews into cord, its tusks into weapons and sacred ornaments. The mammoth is a walking world of survival, but to claim even one life from this herd is to challenge a force far greater than ourselves. We do not rush at them blindly. Strength means nothing against their size. Instead, we watch, we study. Elders teach us to read the way they move, to sense which one lags behind, which is old or injured, or drifting too far from the herd's protection. The hunt is not an act of rage, but of patience, strategy, and respect. I remember the first time I stood among the hunters. We crouched low in the tall grass, the cold biting at our bare skin, spears ready, our hearts drumming faster than the earth beneath us. The mammoths passed so close I could smell their musk, hear the snapping of branches beneath their weight. Every step they took could have crushed us without effort, yet we waited, still as stone, until the elders gave the sign. We did not strike at the strongest. That would have meant death for all. Instead, we circled the weakest, shouting, waving torches, rattling bone rattles tied with feathers. The air filled with sound and fire, chaos meant to confuse and divide. Slowly we drew the herd away, forcing one mammoth toward the cliffs where escape was harder. Spears rained from every side, piercing its thick hide. It roared, tusks swinging like scythes, scattering men like leaves. I remember its eye, wild, furious, alive, locking on me as if it knew I was part of its doom. The ground shook as it fell. The herd mourned with trumpets that split the air, circling before retreating into the distance. We approached slowly, with reverence. To us, this was not victory, it was sacrifice. We gave thanks to the spirit of the beast, painting our faces with its blood, offering prayers so its soul would walk free and forgive our taking. The memory burns in me still, the sight of fire reflecting on wet tusks, the steam rising from its body as the cold air closed in. The mammoth was more than prey, it was a teacher. It taught us that survival was not about strength alone, but unity. Alone, I could never have faced such a beast. Together, guided by wisdom, patience, and courage, we endured. Even now, as I walk this ancient world, I hear the echoes of their trumpets. The ground remembers, the people remember, and the story of how we face giants lives on through us. The echoes of the mammoth still linger in my mind, but the forest does not rest. Here, another danger waits, one far swifter, far deadlier. Unlike the mammoth, which announces its presence with thunder, this predator moves like a whisper, silent, patient, watching. We call it the great fanged one, the saber-toothed cat. Its body is thick with muscle, built for ambush. Its fangs curve long and sharp, daggers meant to pierce flesh and sever life in an instant. To meet its gaze is to feel time stop, as if the forest itself holds its breath. Unlike the mammoth, we cannot face this beast as a group in open ground. Spears cannot pierce fast enough when it strikes from shadows. To survive it, we must become hunters of the hunter. We move silently, scanning the trees for signs, fresh tracks in the mud, claw marks on bark, the sudden silence of birds. The world itself warns us when one is near. I remember the day a young hunter was taken. One moment, he walked with us through the tall grass. The next, the cat leapt from above, crashing down with a roar that froze our blood. Its fangs sank deep, and before we could raise a spear, it dragged him into the shadows. Only the grass swayed, stained red, and the forest swallowed his cries. From then we learned never to walk without watching the treetops. The saber-toothed cat does not chase, it waits. High above, it perches on branches, its golden eyes burning like fire through the leaves. It waits for the weakest to stray, the last in the line, the one distracted by hunger or thought. Our elders taught us to counter with fire. Fire is the one thing the beast fears. At night when we camp, we ring ourselves with flames, stacking wood high to keep the circle strong. I have seen the glow of eyes just beyond the firelight, circling, pacing, waiting for weakness. But the beast does not cross the flames. When we hunt it, we must lure it into open ground. A lone hunter acts as bait, pretending to stumble, pretending to break from the group. The cat cannot resist weakness. It leaps. And when it does, the others rush from hiding, spears striking before it can turn. Even then, the fight is chaos. Screams, claws tearing flesh, the beast thrashing with power that shakes the earth. I remember one such hunt. The cat leapt at me, jaws wide, fangs glinting with death. Time slowed. I felt its breath, hot and foul, as its shadow swallowed mine. At the last moment, the elder's spear struck true, piercing deep into its chest. It roared, blood spraying, before collapsing in fury. Even dying, it clawed the ground, refusing surrender. We did not celebrate. To kill such a predator was never triumph. It was survival. We burned herbs over its body, sending smoke to the sky so its spirit would not linger in anger. Its teeth we carved into necklaces, not as trophies, but as reminders of death's closeness. Each fang carried the weight of those lost before us. The saber-toothed cat taught us fear and how to master it. In its eyes, we saw our own fragility. In its shadow, we learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to keep walking despite it. Even now, when the forest grows silent and the wind dies, I feel it. The sense of being watched, the knowledge that somewhere, in the silence, death waits. And I remember the lesson of my ancestors. Survive not by strength nor by speed, but by vigilance. The beast is gone now, but its spirit still prowls the edges of memory. The memory of the saber-toothed cat lingers like a shadow in my mind. But in this land, one danger gives way to another. Not all threats are swift and silent. Some are slow, towering, and deceptively gentle until roused. We call it the giant sloth. At first glance, it seems harmless. It lumbers with heavy steps, tearing leaves and branches with long claws. Its massive body moves slowly, as if the world itself bends to its pace. But to mistake its slowness for weakness is to invite death. I have seen it rear onto its hind legs, rising higher than any man, even higher than a mammoth's shoulder. Its claws, longer than a spearhead, can shred bark from trees with a single swipe. If it turns those claws upon flesh, no shield or hide can protect you. For my people, the giant sloth was both a nuisance and a nightmare. It stripped entire groves of fruit, leaving us hungry. It raided our stores, clawing apart shelters in search of food. And when startled, it turned violent, striking with a force that crushed bones and shattered lives. I remember one season when our hunters followed a herd of deer into the lowlands. There among the fig trees, a giant sloth appeared, standing on its hind legs, arms stretched wide. Its shadow swallowed the grove. The deer fled, and we stood frozen. Its roar was not sharp like a cat's, but deep and thunderous, a bellow that shook the leaves from branches. We tried to drive it away with fire. Torches waved in the air, sparks flying. At first it backed slowly, covering its face with claws. But when a torch touched its fur, it lunged. The ground shook as it crashed forward, swiping at hunters, knocking one into the trees. His scream still haunts me, the sound of air leaving his lungs as bones snapped beneath that blow. To fight the sloth was different from any other beast. It did not flee. It stood massive and unyielding, like the trees themselves. Our spears broke against its hide. Arrows lodged deep but only angered it more. We learned that to defeat it, we had to use the land itself. One hunt I remember well. The elders led it toward a swamp, knowing its heavy body would sink in the mud. We shouted, threw spears, and waved torches, drawing it step by heavy step into the marsh. Its movement slowed, each foot trapped deeper. When it bellowed, the sound rolled across the water like thunder. Only then did our hunters close in, striking where the flesh was soft, under its arms, at its throat. Even as it fell, it did not surrender. It clawed at the earth, tearing mud and roots, until the swamp swallowed it whole. The ripples spread, and silence followed. We stood in awe, not cheering, but humbled. We knew we had defeated not just an animal, but a force of nature. The giant sloth gave us meat, but also warning. It taught us that danger is not always fast or loud. Sometimes it moves slowly, patiently, until the moment it strikes. It showed us that survival was not about rushing headlong, but about planning, patience, and the wisdom to use the world around us. Even now, when I walk through groves stripped bare, I remember its shadow. I hear the echo of its bellow in the rustling trees. The land remembers. The people remember. And so the story of the giant sloth lives on in us. The swamp swallowed the giant sloth, but our struggle did not end there. For in the northern valleys roamed a beast greater still, swifter, hungrier, and feared above all others, the short-faced bear. Unlike the lumbering brown bears we know today, this creature was a mountain of muscle standing taller than any man, even on all fours. When it rose to full height, it seemed to scrape the sky. Its legs were longer than spears, built not for climbing or shambling, but for running, fast, relentless, across open ground. Where the mammoth could be outsmarted, where the cat could be ambushed, the bear was something else entirely. It did not stalk in silence. It came openly, with a roar that rolled through valleys like thunder. When the bear appeared, everything fled. Deer, wolves, even the mighty cats. I remember one morning when we found the carcass of a mammoth calf. Its bones were shattered, its hide torn like bark. Around it were prints, huge, round, and deep, each step pressed as if the earth itself had been struck. The elders whispered. The short-faced one had passed. Our fear was not only for ourselves, but for our children. The bear raided camps, tearing through hides and wooden frames like dry leaves. Its nose was keen, catching scent from miles away. No fire, no barrier of sharpened stakes could turn it aside. When hunger drove it, it would come, and we had only two choices: flee or fight. To face the bear was to gamble with death. Its claws were the length of daggers, its jaws wide enough to crush a man's skull in one bite. Arrows shattered on its thick hide. Spears splintered against its chest. Even when wounded, it charged with fury, striking down everything in its path. Yet we could not always run. There were times when our survival demanded we make a stand. I remember the hunt well. A bear had followed us for days, its roars echoing at night, circling like a storm that would not break. At dawn, the elders gathered us, their faces hard. This would be no ordinary hunt. We laid traps along a narrow gorge, digging pits, weaving stakes, and lining the path with sharpened stones. The hunters carried torches and rattles, their bodies painted red and black with ash. When the bear came, the ground trembled with its steps, its roar shaking dust from cliffs. The trap slowed it, but only just. It roared in fury, snapping stakes, climbing from pits as though they were nothing. We struck from all sides, spears thrusting, arrows raining. The beast reared, swiping hunters aside like twigs. Its charge broke our lines, and for a moment I believed none of us would live to tell this tale. But the elders did not falter. They pressed the attack, driving it toward a cliff where escape narrowed. At last, a spear found its mark, deep into the chest, between ribs. Blood poured like a river, staining the stones. The bear roared one final time, so loud it seemed the mountains echoed back, then collapsed with the weight of a falling boulder. We stood in silence, our breath ragged, our spears shattered. To us, this was not victory. It was survival, bought at the cost of blood and terror. The shaman burned sage over the body, lifting prayers so the spirit of the bear would not follow us. Its claws we carried, bound in leather, to remind us of the courage it demanded. The short-faced bear was the test of our endurance. It showed us that survival was not only about cunning or patience, but about facing the storm when escape was no longer possible. It taught us that even when the earth itself shook with fear, we could still stand. Even now, when thunder rolls through valleys, I hear its roar. When the ground trembles beneath my feet, I remember its charge. The land remembers. The people remember. And so the spirit of the great bear lives on in us. The roar of the short-faced bear fades into memory, but the night brings no peace. For when the sun falls, another terror rises, not one of giants alone, but of numbers. The dire wolf. Unlike the lone hunter of the cat or the towering strength of the bear, the dire wolf was never alone. They came as shadows on the horizon, dozens of them, moving as one. Their paws beat the ground in rhythm, a storm of fur and teeth sweeping across the land. I have seen them circle bison herds, weaving with silent precision, cutting off the weak, the young. Their howls rolled over the plains like drums of war. To hear that sound at night was to feel death drawing near. For my people, the dire wolf was a mirror. Alone, we were prey. Together, we could endure. The wolves taught us fear, but also showed us the strength of unity. I remember a winter when food grew scarce. We tracked deer across the snow, but the wolves had found them first. By the time we arrived, only blood stained the ground, steam rising from torn flesh. The wolves stood watching us from a ridge, their muzzles red, their eyes burning in the pale light. They did not flee. They did not fear. They were many, and they knew it. To face them meant facing not just one predator, but a pack. Spears could hold back one, but while we struck forward, others lunged from behind. Their jaws crushed bone, their weight dragged men down, tearing at flesh until the snow ran crimson. We learned to survive with fire and formation. At night, our camps burned bright, a ring of flame against the dark. When wolves prowled the edges, their eyes glowed in the firelight, pacing, waiting. We gathered close, spears outward, our backs to one another. It was not courage alone that kept us alive. It was trust, each man guarding the next. I remember one battle well. The pack came at dusk, their howls echoing over frozen plains. We formed a circle, torches blazing, drums beating. The wolves charged. The first leapt into the firelight, jaws wide, only to be met with a forest of spears. More came, snapping, clawing, dragging at shields. The air filled with snarls, screams, and the crack of bone. At last, when the pack broke, a great black wolf remained, larger than the rest, eyes like coals. It stood tall, defiant, even as blood dripped from its jaws. Our elder stepped forward, spear raised, his face painted in red and ash. With a final thrust, he brought the beast down. We gave thanks, not in triumph, but in respect. The dire wolf was more than predator. It was teacher. Its pack showed us the power of unity, of standing together in the face of death. To live through the wolves was to learn that survival is not for the strongest or the fastest, but for those who endure side by side. Even now, when the wind howls across empty plains, I hear their voices. The earth remembers their hunt, and the people remember their lesson. To be many, to move as one, that was the gift of the dire wolf. Journey through time with us. Subscribe for powerful history videos that awaken the past, illuminate lost worlds, and reveal the echoes of those who came before us.